Okay, happy Monday. It is February 16th, 2026. And, if you have been anywhere near a screen, a speaker, or, well, frankly, just civilization in general over the last few weeks, you know exactly who is dominating the cultural conversation right now.
It would be genuinely difficult to miss her. I mean, she is absolutely everywhere.
We are talking about the woman who, just a little over a week ago, finally walked away with a big hardware. 2 shiny new Grammys for Brat.
Finally, yes.
Best Dance Pop Recording for Von Dutch. And, of course, Best Dance Electronic Album. But honestly, the awards almost feel like a footnote to everything else that's happening in her orbit.
Well, it's the convergence of everything, isn't it? You have the awards, sure, that's the industry validation, but then you also have the release of her film, The Moment, which dropped last month.
Right.
And on top of that, the news that has all the film buffs, completely losing their minds.
Yeah.
She is currently scoring the Emerald Fennell adaptation of Wuthering Heights.
Which is such a flex. I mean, come on. From I Love It to Emily Bronte, it's a trajectory that really shouldn't make any sense.
Not at all.
But somehow, with her, it makes perfect sense. We are, of course, dedicating today's deep dive to the one and only Charli XCX.
The defining architect of the last decade of pop music, and I really don't use that title lightly.
No, and that's the mission for today, right? We need to figure out how this specific person, this girl from Essex, who started out posting what she called terrible demos on Myspace and playing illegal warehouse raves while she was still in school, how did she manage to basically hijack the mainstream? How did she become the bridge between the weirdest, most aggressive underground sounds and the absolute center of global pop culture?
It is the paradox of Charli. It really is. She's this massive global superstar who operates with the mindset of a niche underground artist.
She's a hitmaker who is famously kind of tame to hate pop music.
Exactly. And she's the party girl icon who is actually a notorious, relentless workaholic. It's all these contradictions.
And as we sit here in 2026, looking back at the last 2 years especially, that tension seems to be the fuel. That battle between being commercially viable, selling out arenas, winning Grammys, and maintaining that weird experimental edge.
That's it. That's the core of it. So we have a massive stack of sources today. We're going through all the biographical archives, the discography deep cuts, the Brat era interviews, and of course all the breaking news about her shift into cinema.
Let's start at the beginning. Because I think when people see Charli XCX now, the fashion icon, the film producer, it's so easy to forget just how scrappy her origin story really is. This was not a Disney Channel pipeline situation.
Oh, far from it. So let's go back to 1992. Charlotte Emma Aitchison is born in Cambridge, and her background is interesting right off the bat. Her dad, John, is Scottish and an entrepreneur. Her mom, Shamira, is Indian-Ugandan, a former nurse and flight attendant.
And she grew up in Essex, Start Hill, specifically.
Right. And while she was listening to the Spice Girls and Britney Spears, like basically every other kid in the late 90s and early 2000s, her reaction to it was different. She started writing songs when she was just 14. But here's the detail that I think defines her entire career. She didn't just write them in her bedroom and, hope for the best. She treated herself like a business from day one.
You're talking about The Loan, right?
The Loan, yes.
Oh, yeah.
She convinced her parents to lend her money to record her first album.
Which is just wild for a 14-year-old. Most kids are asking for, a new bike or a PlayStation. She's asking for seed capital.
It just shows this level of belief or maybe delusion, which you kind of need to be a pop star. That is pretty rare. So she records this album, which she calls 14, and she starts posting the tracks on Myspace.
The Myspace era. The golden age of terrible HTML and those auto-playing songs on your profile.
It was the Wild West, but Charli wasn't posting like polished teen pop. She was posting what she later described as gimmicky dance tracks and fucking terrible Myspace music.
She's her own worst critic.
Always. But crucially, it caught the ear of a promoter in East London. And this guy was running illegal warehouse raves.
This is the part of the story that always blows my mind. You have this schoolgirl from Hertfordshire. She is attending a fairly posh private school. She's getting good grades in art. And on the weekends, she's putting on these insane outfits and traveling to Hackney to perform at illegal raves.
And her parents were driving her.
That is the best part. I just have this image of her dad standing in the back of some grimy warehouse, holding her coat while she's on stage screaming over these crazy electro beats.
It speaks to the incredible support system she had for sure, but also just that contrast. She was living these two completely different lives. And she needed a name, right? So she was billed under her MSN Messenger screen name.
Charli XCX.
She literally just used her screen name because she didn't think to change it. She admitted later she had no idea it would stick forever. She just thought it was for, like, one flyer.
I remember reading somewhere that people thought the XCX was some deep, edgy code, like X-rated content X or something.
Yeah. Nope. It stood for Kiss, Charli Kiss.
No way.
Yeah, it was just a teenage girl sign-off. It's so aggressively mid-2000s. She kept it. She said recently that she decided to keep it so she wouldn't pull a Prince and change her name to some unpronounceable symbol, which I think shows she understands the value of branding, even back then.
But it wasn't all just, cool raves and supportive parents.
Yeah.
There was a darker side to her school years that I think really informs the outsider status that she still holds on to.
Absolutely. She has spoken pretty extensively about the bullying she faced. She was, in her own words, a half-Indian girl with frizzy hair in a predominantly white environment in Bishop Stortford.
Yeah.
She felt like she stuck out. She felt othered. And she said kids would chant horrible things at her on the bus. It was really quite traumatic.
That feeling of being the weird girl never really leaves you, does it? Even when you become a global icon.
I don't think it does. And I think that friction, that feeling of wanting to be accepted, but also kind of resenting the people who wouldn't accept you, is the engine of so much of her music.
So by 2010, she gets signed to Asylum Records. On paper, she's made it. She's 18. She has a major label deal. But she described herself during this period as completely lost.
Totally lost. She gave that interview to The Guardian where she said she hated pop music at the time.
Hated it. While signed to a pop label.
Right. She wanted to make bad rap music. She was completely obsessed with Uffy and that whole Ed Banger record sound coming out of Paris. She didn't want to be a polished pop star. She wanted to be gritty and cool. But she was stuck in the major label machine, which, just tries to smooth out all your interesting edges.
And then the accident happens, the accidental hitmaker phase. Because for someone who claimed to hate pop, she somehow wrote one of the most undeniable, inescapable pop songs of the entire 2010s.
I love it.
I crashed my car into the bridge. I don't care. I love it. You could not escape that song in 2012. It was in every commercial, every club, every movie trailer.
The story of that song is just fascinating. She wrote it in about half an hour in a hotel room in Sweden. Just pure, unfiltered frustration.
So she was just venting.
Totally. Yeah. But she hated it for herself. She thought it was too shouty, too basic. She just couldn't reconcile it with the cool underground image she was so desperately trying to build. So she gave it away.
She gave it to Icona Pop, this Swedish duo.
And they turned it into a global smash. It went to #1 in the UK, top 10 in the US. And Charli is just the feature. She's the girl who wrote it, but she's not the face of it. And she's watching this thing she created just take over the world.
And then it happens again.
It happens again with Fancy in 2014. She writes the hook for Iggy Azalea.
First things first, I'm the realist.
And that becomes the song of the summer. I mean, it is still her most streamed song ever, even now. And then finally, she gets her own hit, a proper solo hit.
Boom Clap.
Boom Clap from the Fault in Our Stars soundtrack. And you really cannot get more mainstream, middle-of-the-road pop culture than a John Green movie adaptation in 2014.
That was peak Tumblr era culture.
Exactly. So by the end of 2014... Charli XCX is statistically a massive pop star. She has multiple platinum records. She's on the radio constantly. But internally, she is miserable.
Totally disconnected.
Completely. She feels like an imposter. She's winning a game she doesn't even want to play.
And this is the moment where most artists would just cash in.
Yeah.
You become the next Katy Perry. You make Boom Clap 2.0. You ride that wave until it crashes.
But Charli did something that I think really defines her legacy. She pivoted. Hard.
She rejected the machine, and it started with the album Sucker in late 2014. She was so frustrated with the music industry, with being told what to do, that she went to Sweden, basically isolated herself, and made a punk-inspired album in like a month. That's where we get Break the Rules, which is so on the nose. I don't want to go to school. I just want to break the rules. It's extremely bratty.
It is. It's like the Ramones meets bubblegum pop. She said she was listening to Weezer and the Hives and just wanted to make something loud and obnoxious. It was her way of giving the finger to the polished pop world that had tried to claim her.
But honestly, Sucker,
Yeah.
it was just the warm-up, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The real revolution, the moment the timeline really splits, is 2015 and 2016.
Oh, absolutely. This is the PC music turning point. And we throw that term around a lot, PC music, but we should probably take a second to define what that actually means for people who weren't, terminally online in 2015.
Yes, please. Because it was a whole scene.
Right. So PC Music was a label and an art collective, and it was primarily led by a producer named A.G. Cook. Their whole aesthetic was, well, it was taking pop tropes and accelerating them until they broke.
Yeah.
It was incredibly synthetic, high gloss with these pitched up, almost chipmunk-like vocals and textures that sounded like plastic and latex. It was almost a satire of consumerism, but at the same time, it genuinely loved pop melodies.
That's a great description. I always said it was music that sounded like it was made by a sentient energy drink.
That is a perfect description. And then in that same orbit, you had Sophie. Sophie was a producer, or the visionary, really, who was associated with that scene. And she was making some of the most radical sound design in history. Sounds that felt like metal stretching or bubbles popping or rubber snapping.
And Charli meets them?
She meets Sophie, and they just click. They realize they are both completely bored with the status quo of pop music, and together they create the Vroom EP in 2016.
I remember hearing Vroom Vroom for the first time, the title track. It starts with this like sleek, almost robotic whisper, "Let's ride." And then the beat drops and it just sounds like a car crash made of chrome.
It was such a shock. It was tonal whiplash for her existing fans. I mean, if you were a boom clap fan, Vroom just sounded like noise. It was abrasive, it was aggressive, it was avant pop.
And the critics were confused. Is that our word?
Yeah. Confused is being generous. A lot of people hated it. Pitchfork gave it a 4.5 out of 10. They totally dismissed it. But Charli didn't care. She knew she'd found her sound. This was the moment she stopped trying to be a normal pop star and started building her own world.
And this leads directly to the mixtape era. We're talking Number One Angel and, of course, Pop 2.
Pop 2 is the holy grail.
Yeah.
It really is. If you ask any diehard Charli fan, the Angels as they're called, what her best work is, I'd say 90% of them will say Pop 2.
Okay, so why? What makes that specific mixtape so special?
It's the blueprint for the 2020s. It was released back in 2017, but it sounds like it could have been made yesterday. The production by A.G. Cook is so dense and layered, but also incredibly emotional. And the way she uses auto-tune, she uses it as an instrument. It's not there to hide her voice. It's there to texturize it, to bend it into these inhuman emotional shapes. You listen to a track like track 10.
Which became Blame It On Your Love later.
Right. But the original track 10, it creates this swirling, digital, emotional landscape that feels so incredibly human despite being totally synthetic. It's that paradox again.
And the features, the collaboration on that project is insane.
The features are key. Because she wasn't just singing on the track, she was curating. She was a creative director. She brought in Carly Rae Jepsen, who is very much a mainstream pop artist, and put her on a track with this really distinct, futuristic, underground production.
Right.
She brought in Kim Petras before she was huge. She brought in Cupcake, the rapper. She brought in Jay Park from Korea, Pablo Vittar from Brazil. She created this global network of weirdo pop.
But we have to talk about why she was releasing mixtapes instead of official albums. Because it wasn't just an artistic choice, was it?
Yeah.
It was a reaction to a total disaster.
The leaks. This is such a crucial part of the lore. In 2017, Charli had finished her third official studio album. It was done. It was ready to go. And then hackers leaked the entire thing online.
Oh, that has to be just devastating for an artist.
Yeah.
You spend years working on something and it just gets dumped on a random forum for free.
It was completely traumatizing for her. She said she felt violated, like her house had been broken into. And typically, a label would say, well, the cat's out of the bag, let's just release it anyway and try to salvage it.
Right, just rush it out.
But Charli said no. She scrapped the entire project. She refused to officially release what the fans now call XCX World, the leak album.
Which is a huge power move, but also a massive creative and financial risk.
It is, but it forced her to change her entire creative process. She realized she couldn't sit on music for 2 years waiting for a traditional album rollout because it might just get leaked anyway. She had to be faster. She had to be more fluid.
And the mixtape format allowed it.
Exactly. The mixtape format allowed her to completely bypass the label's red tape. She could make a song on a Tuesday and decide to release it on a Friday. It gave her all the control.
So the leaks, in a really weird, roundabout way, created the fast Charli that we know today.
Precisely. It turned a complete disaster into a new methodology. It made her incredibly nimble.
Which, as it turns out, prepared her perfectly for the next global disaster, the pandemic.
2020. The world just shuts down. And while most artists were either delaying their albums indefinitely or doing these awkward acoustic live streams from their living rooms, Charli decided to make an entire album from scratch in 6 weeks.
How I'm feeling now.
This project was just fascinating because she completely tore down the wall between the artist and the fan. She was on Zoom calls with hundreds of fans, asking them what they thought about certain lyrics. She was on Instagram Live, testing out beats A.G. Cook was sending her in real time.
She asked fans to design the artwork, to direct music videos from their own homes.
It was open source pop music. It was a community project. And because of that, it was so raw and immediate. She was stuck in a house with her boyfriend at the time, and the lyrics deal with that specific kind of lockdown claustrophobia.
Oh.
You know, songs like Detonate or Enemy. These are songs about deeply loving someone, but also feeling like you might actually explode if you have to look at them for one more second in the same room.
It captured the mood of 2020 better than almost anything else. That manic, anxious, bored, loving, hateful energy all at once.
And technically, it was a triumph. She recorded all her own vocals on a standard microphone. A.G. Cook was sending beats remotely. It proved you don't need $1 million studio to make a masterpiece. You just need vision and a laptop.
So she's done the punk album. She's done the avant-garde mixtapes. She's done the DIY quarantine album. She has firmly established herself as the queen of the underground, the critical darling. And then she does a complete 180 again.
Clash, 2022.
The concept for Crash was so interesting because she basically came out and said, for this album, I'm going to play the character of a sellout pop star.
It was her final album for a contract with Atlantic Records, a contract she signed when she was just a teenager. And she decided to go out with a bang by giving the label exactly what they had always wanted from her.
Which was a big, glossy, 80s-inspired mainstream pop album.
Exactly. The aesthetic was very deal with the devil. There was blood, vampires, car crashes, this dark, knowing glamour.
She was really leaning into the pop machine.
She was. She channeled Janet Jackson. She learned choreography for the first time in her career. She put on the polished outfits. And the beautiful irony is it worked. Crash became her first #1 album in the UK.
She proved she could beat the main pop girls at their own game anytime she wanted to.
But she did it with a wink. Every interview she gave during that era, she was sort of breaking the fourth wall, acknowledging that she was performing the role of the major label pop star. It was performance art that just happened to chart really well.
Which brings us to the era that really changed everything. The reason she is holding those Grammys right now. The Brat era.
2024, the summer of Brat.
I don't think we can overstate how completely ubiquitous this was. That specific shade of lime green. That square was everywhere.
Let's talk about that green for a second. Because it wasn't just a random choice. It's tied to the fact that Charli has synesthesia.
Okay, break that down. Synesthesia is when your senses kind of cross-wire, right?
Specifically, she has chromesthesia, which is sound to color synesthesia. So when she hears music, she sees specific colors. She has said in interviews that she loves music that looks black or pink or purple or red to her. Pop 2, for example, she says, is very purple and sparkly.
Okay, so what about green?
She hates it. She has said she hates music that sounds green, yellow, or brown. She finds those colors sonically to be really unappealing. So for Brat, an album she considers her masterpiece. She deliberately chose this aggressive, ugly, slime green, I think it's roughly Pantone 3570C, as the cover.
So she picked the color she hates the most for her favorite album.
It was a challenge. It was a provocation. She wanted to take something that was on its face kind of repulsive and force the world to look at it until they found it cool. It was a whole statement on ugly beauty, and my God, did it work.
It completely took over. You had the whole Brat Summer trend.
Yes.
It was this massive rejection of the clean girl aesthetic. You know, the beige tones, the slick back buns, the green juices that had dominated social media for years. Brat was the antidote. It was about being messy. It was about smoking cigarettes, having a breakdown in the club, being a little chaotic and loud.
It was a little relatable. It tapped into this deep fatigue people were feeling with having to present a perfect, curated life online. And the music backed it up, 100%. 360, Von Dutch. These are aggressive, confident, almost arrogant tracks. But then you have a song like Apple.
Which sparked that massive TikTok dance trend.
A huge trend. And the cultural reach just went all the way to the top. We have to mention the Kamala Harris moment.
That's unavoidable.
Right. So when President Biden stepped down from a race and Kamala Harris launched her presidential campaign, her social media team immediately adopted the Brat aesthetic. They used the lime green background, the low-res sans serif font.
And look, regardless of your politics, just looking at it from a cultural analysis perspective, that is insane. You have a potential president of the United States using the branding of a rave pop album that has lyrics about doing bumps of coke in the bathroom.
It just showed that Charli had finally permeated the monoculture. She wasn't just for the cool kids in the know anymore. She was the culture.
Yeah.
And the critics agreed. Billboard, Rolling Stone, everyone named Brat the album of the year.
And the Metacritic score?
Yeah.
It's a 95. That is historically high. That puts it in the same league as, like, classic, universally agreed upon masterpieces.
And she just kept feeding the fire with the remix album, Brat and Bat.
And
it's completely different, but also it's still Brat.
The title alone is just genius. But the collaborators she got everyone. Ariana Grande, Addison Rae.
But the most important one, the one that felt like a real cultural moment, was the remix with Lorde.
The Girl So Confusing remix.
This was a moment of genuine vulnerability and kind of pop culture therapy. For years, the media and fans had pitted Charli and Lorde against each other. They were the two alternative pop girls with big, dark hair who came up around the same time.
Right. There was always this narrative of a rivalry.
And on the original track, Charli sings about her own insecurity and her complicated feelings about Lorde. She sings, "People say we're alike. They say we've got the same hair." She talks about feeling like Lorde looked down on her, thought she was annoying.
And then she gets Lorde on the remix to respond to those exact lyrics.
And Lorde's verse was so brutal and beautiful. She admitted that she was isolating herself during that period because she felt insecure about her body and her public image, not because she hated Charli. They basically worked out their beef in real time on a track that then went to #1. It was reality TV meets high art.
And then, just to confuse everyone, she throws Bon Iver on a remix.
Of course she does. Why not? Which brings us to where she is now, February 2026. Because Brat, as huge as it was, already feels like it was ages ago in Charli time. She has already moved on to the next 10 things.
Her personal life seems to have settled down a bit, though. She got married last summer, July 2025.
Yes, to George Daniel, the drummer and main producer for the 1975.
Which is basically the royal wedding of British indie pop.
It really is. They had a small town hall ceremony in London and then a big lavish wedding in Sicily. But even in her, settled married life, she's pushing buttons.
You're talking about the Smartless interview?
Just a couple of weeks ago, she went on the Smartless podcast with Jason Bateman, Sean Hayes, and Will Arnett. And she was very candid. She said she doesn't really want to have children. And there was this really awkward moment where Jason Bateman kind of questioned her on it.
Oh, I heard this.
Sort of implying that, she's young, she might change her mind.
Which is such a classic condescending dad thing to say to a woman.
It is. But Charli stood her ground. She said she feels like she's married to her work. She feels her art is her legacy, her child in a way, and it sparked a lot of debate online, but it fits her brand perfectly. She refuses to follow the expected script, First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes baby in a baby carriage. Charli is just rewriting that entire nursery rhyme.
And the work that she's married to is evolving. We aren't just talking about albums and mixtapes anymore. She is becoming a film mogul.
This is the new frontier for 2026. She produced the film The Moment, which came out last month, and it's this gritty, hyper-real drama that's very much inspired by the rave scenes she grew up in.
And she's acting more. She was in the Faces of Death remake. She's in the new film I Want Your Sex.
But the big news, the one that really signals the shift in her career, is the score. The fact that she is composing the entire score for Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights.
That is such a serious pivot. Emerald Fennell, Promising Young Woman, Saltburn. She has a very specific, twisted, pop-infused aesthetic. So Charli seems like a perfect match, but scoring a gothic period piece.
It suggests that Charli is looking at a career like Trent Reznor or Johnny Greenwood. Musicians who started in rock or pop and then became these serious Oscar-winning composers. It's a bid for longevity. Pop stars have a shelf life. Composers can work forever.
And the new music she's been releasing reflects that, too.
Yeah.
She released that Track House late last year.
Featuring John Cale.
From the Velvet Underground.
You cannot signal your artistic intentions more clearly than that. The Velvet Underground is basically the genesis of all art rock. So by working with John Cale, Charli is placing herself directly in that lineage. She's saying, I'm not just the I love it girl. I'm an avant-garde artist with real history.
And Wall of Sound, the track that dropped in January of this year, it's dense. It feels orchestral, but it still has those glitched out, futuristic vocals.
It's the synthesis. That's what it is. She's taking the classical sweeping elements of a film score and mashing them together with the hyper-modern PC music production she pioneered. It sounds like the future, again.
So let's zoom out. What does this all mean? We've looked at the rave kid, the reluctant pop star, the punk, the curator, the sellout, the brat, and now, maybe, the composer.
I think Charli XCX represents the final collapse of the binary. For decades, we had this rule in music. You were either underground, which meant you were cool, credible, but probably broke, or you were mainstream, which meant you were kind of lame, but rich and famous. You couldn't be both.
You were either Nirvana or you were New Kids on the Block. There was no in-between.
Exactly. Charli proved that distinction is dead. She proved that you can make the weirdest, most abrasive, sometimes ugly music possible, and if you have the vision and package it right, you can sell out Madison Square Garden and win Grammys with it. She turned outsider status into the ultimate insider credential.
Everyone wants to be in Charli's world now.
Yeah.
The weird girl from Bishop Stortford, she won.
She absolutely did. And the final provocative thought I have is this. Charli began her career actively hating pop music. She spent 10 years deconstructing it, mocking it, breaking it apart, and putting it back together wrong. But in doing so, she actually saved it. She made pop music interesting and dangerous again.
Which raises the question. If she is now scoring films and working with legends like John Cale, is her pop star era actually over?
Or is she just redefining what a pop star does in the late 2020s? Maybe the new pop star isn't just a singer. Maybe they are a world builder, a composer, a director, a curator.
That is the question we're going to be watching for the rest of 2026, for sure.
Indeed.
We want to know what you think about all this. Is the pivot to film the right move for her? Are you still bumping Brat 2 years later? Let us know.
I certainly am. It's still on repeat.
Check out the show notes for this one. We've linked all the deep cuts we talked about, the interviews, and a playlist of every song we mentioned today, including that wild John Cale collaboration.
It's definitely worth the deep dive.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
See ya.